Nice. So we're joined by four very diverse panelists today, and we have 141 attendees now. Hello, welcome. If you haven't introduced yourself, also by the way, attendees, you can introduce yourself at the chat box below, so that we panelists know where you're coming from, what city, what school, what institution you're coming from, so we can also cater some of our discussions for you. But anyway, so I've prepared a few questions. So how this is going to work, I've prepared 4 questions that we sent to the panelists already, and then we'll go through some of the questions. But throughout the discussion, if you already have Q&As that you want to ask a specific panelist or all the panelists, we also have a Q&A feature here at Zoom below where you can ask a question. And I think you can upvote some of the questions so that you can help us prioritize some of the questions that we want to address during this discussion. Okay. Yeah, so let's begin with the first question. So panelists, given that this is an unusual time, we're in a crisis, we're in emergency, all schools are closed, many institutions are closed, and this has affected school operations and learning and teaching. So based on what you've been seeing so far in the past 2.5 weeks that we've been in quarantine, share one thing that schools did right during this quarantine period, and why do you consider it a good practice? So we'll ask you first to share one observation or one good practice that you've seen schools do. So anyone can begin. Who wants to start?
Okay, let me start. Morning, everyone. So for the past 2 weeks, I've been calling and making sure that we are in touch with our clients, with our partner schools. So most of them made sure that lessons are still intact by sending materials over to email to their students. So this is what we call asynchronous learning, which means that there's a lot of materials that are available just to ensure that the classes are still ongoing, and making sure that, of course, the students are still learning. Because for the grade school, K-12 levels, they're still on the last week of their schools, right? So there's a big possibility talaga na ma-disrupt yung classes because it's going to be like the end of the term and there's supposed to be exams na. So saludo po kami sa mga teachers natin who continuously rallied for continuing the education, lalo na dun sa mga patapos na yung school year. Of course,
Nice.
One of the techniques that they employed based on my interviews would be the reflection from the students. Kasi parang using guided self-reflection as a technique, be it in writing or be it in a recorded video, would help, of course, the teacher assess not only the communication skills of the kids, but also the current state at this point, because it's really a crisis. So it's one of the utmost concerns of most schools right now, how our students and teachers and, of course, administrators are handling on.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Mark.
Hey, Gerson.
Hi, Miguel. Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I guess from my end, the work that I do is mostly with public schools, and I'm in contact with some teachers who are doing fantastic work. At this time, I think the importance of internet connectivity and mobile tech in general. I know I work for Globe, but this is really something that has been maximized over the past few days. And I see it in several things. One is a lot of the teachers engage their students via Messenger and Facebook. I think it was the easiest channel to reach the students, and across teacher communities as well. Everyone is going through this for the first time, and everyone is going in blind. But in terms of using connectivity, Facebook is one. The other is there's a lot of DIY videos being independently by teachers, and it's wonderful to see. Even as parents would share that they're also learning from these videos themselves. And thirdly, and I think is one very important growth point is there is a lot of self-paced learning that's being enforced, and it while there you really cannot substitute face-to-face learning. The distance learning, you know, promotes a lot of critical thinking, independence, and this is something that students and teachers as well can help develop as a soft skill.
Nice, definitely. Interesting yung na-mention mo na DIY videos. Maybe that's something you can share with us as links, or that's quite interesting. Thank you.
First thing we did right was to craft a policy 2 years ago. Actually, we crafted a policy that included things for situation like this, and that was, I believe, a right thing to do. But we thought we prepared enough, but of course, nobody is really prepared for this, for the kind of magnitude that this pandemic had. No, I mean, nung the first few weeks since we have the org structure and the policy to address this issue when cancellation of classes started, suddenly we realized that even we already had the EdTech office. We were not prepared for the magnitude of the request of teacher assistants online. So the first thing we did was to ask our administrator to call on teacher volunteers outrightly. So we asked for teacher volunteers. Around 80 teacher volunteered to do online tech coaching on the first few days. On the first week, we already lagged about, hindi pa nalag yung iba doon, pero we were able to lag about 200 online tutorials, na one-on-one tutorials per teacher. And for us, that proved to be one of the parang good things that we were able to do on the first weeks. Of course, there were problems, but we were able to at least do online learning on the first few weeks and let it fly. Yung teacher volunteerism, that was one of the good things.
Yes. Thank you for sharing, Sir Tujel. Brother Dennis.
My turn now. Since I'm the last, I think there's two things that I would like to share, which is the good and the bad already, because I think that's the difficulties, not the bad, but the more of the difficulties. So just to give you a situation, Hong Kong just started its classes last September. So we are in the middle of a school year. Unlike the Philippines, where many grade school, high schools are just about to end. So this is really very difficult. We classes were suspended here February 3, and it is not going to be back again until April 20, and it might even be extended. So many people think that Hong Kong is very rich and they can afford to have connectivity and everything, but it's not always true. So there are still some people who are poor. There's still some students who are in the mainland and cannot connect. So what I would like to share with you is a video. It's up to 4 minutes, a video, because many of you have Hong Kong tickets to fly here the past weeks, and you could not fly anymore. So I'll bring you to Hong Kong by this video. And it's also good to have a video once in a while in Zoom meetings, because to let them know that it's possible. So this might even be an example on how you can do videos while you're teaching using Zoom. So I think someone has the video with me there. So I think Kat can play it.
Yeah, okay, so let's wait for Kat to load up the video. Thank you, Brother Dennis.
Đi cháu.我叫于晴，我而家喺屋企 online learning 返學。起身啦，跟住食早餐啦，跟住開電腦我就有個時間表嘅，咁有啲 link 啦，咁我就會跟住個時間表就撳啲 link 出去啲課堂度， 老師會好似平時一樣咁點名。老師有個 function 係可以 share 個 screen 啦，所以我哋會睇到佢喺度講啲咩，咁就會清楚啲，同埋可以抄筆記。但係其實差唔多，因為學啲嘢都係學翻同一啲科目。爭得遠啲就有體育堂啦，咁老師就俾咗啲例子啦，又 show 我啲 YouTube video 就係喺屋企點樣可以健身啊、長高啲啊咁樣，咁我哋就跟住去做啲動作咯。同埋我都覺得幾好啦，因為如果唔係我就會好懶咯，咁有啲嘢做個身體就好健康。
嗰個運動對於學生嗰個係非常之身體嘅成長啊，各樣都係非常之重要。呢一班年輕人平時應該係扎扎跳好活潑嘅人，而家既然要坐晒喺屋企，咁所以我哋覺得加添呢啲咁嘅課程落去咧，係會使佢嗰個學習生活係更加多姿多彩。我哋係2月5號正式開始呢一個實時網上係跟住學校嘅本來嘅時間表去等啲學生上堂嘅。我哋喺好幾年前已經開始咗，學生係喺課堂裏邊咧，同埋老師咧都係好善用呢一個資訊科技。咁佢哋用 iPad 上堂咧，已經係一個好日常嘅嘢嚟㗎啦。咁尤其是會想像到咧，就話而家時間係一長嘅話，即係停課日子一長。我哋好希望用呢一個方法，等學生咧係會有一個正規，每一日嗰個好規律嘅學習生活。
So today we will go through some common mistake. 基本上我可以好容易可以 adjust 到課堂嘅進度，但係而家咧就冇咁容易去測試到，或者係可以量度得到佢哋嘅進度喎。最近中午咧，我教緊一個 3D trigonometry， 即係啲三角學嘅嘢，其實係有啲立體嘅部分喺度嘅。咁以前咧，我可能有一個 model， 真係實體拎上嚟俾學生去睇下，究竟個角度係幾多啊？而家又唔得㗎，咁我就要諗辦法去用唔同嘅 model 或者係上網嘅材料，俾佢哋去感受或者學習。有好多坊間嘅教老師都會話基本上逼咗好多以前用 IT 嘅老師都要用一啲嘅工具，因為好多嘢即係網上課堂係唔能夠代替實體課堂嘅。但係我哋可唔可以攞網上課堂一啲優點同元素，可以帶入到去將來我哋嘅實體課堂去應用，使到我哋實體課堂嘅效能會提高咧？我諗係一個我哋可以再思考嘅一個方向。
Thank you, Kat. Basically, what happened was very simple. The students were prepared beforehand with online learning, online classes in sort of like blended mode. So something like this is not new for many of them. But they still have to work on many things still up to now. They still have learning classes, trainings in Zoom, because it's something new for many teachers too. That's all, Gerson.
Nice, thank you. So thanks for sharing a lot of good practices that we've been seeing from schools, whether it's to address teacher quality and teacher readiness, whether it's addressing student well-being, connectivity issues, making sure that the instruction and the materials are being accessible to the learners, and also structural. It's also good to note that structural readiness, that there are some institutions that might have been more ready because they took a lot of effort beforehand to plan for different types of scenarios. But what it's safe to say also, it's far from perfect. Many of us are still experiencing a lot of challenges. If you can share, so let's flip it around now. If you can share maybe a few challenges that you've been seeing from schools of how they were using technology in addressing the challenges with teaching and learning in this time. Let's talk about challenges. Anyone can start.
So this is in connection to my answer kanina. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been in touch with our partner schools. So one of the major setbacks that they encountered would be the lack of connectivity at home. And of course, even if they want to continue lessons at home, teachers do not have that kind of connectivity that they need in order to continue the classes. So aside from that, there's also a lot of concerns regarding how to continue online learning if we do not have a platform. Um, as we all know, there's a lot of tools out there free that can be used as well. So I started coining a term Jerson eh. Parang I told most of our partners parang what we need now or what the kind of pedagogy that we need now is what we call pandemic pedagogy. So parang people in the academy should have at least a plan whenever things like this arise. So yun nga, parang a lot of them would say there's no support from the institutions. So these are teachers that we're talking to, and then most of the leaders naman from the schools would say they really did not parang see this coming. So at the moment, parang whenever I talk to them, I try to propose like a timeline. So say for example, what are your plans in the next 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months? In order for them to at least prepare, so should they have like a cloud where they can store their files? Should they have a platform, like a free platform or platform will do? It's up to them, but making sure that learning still continues at home. There's also an option where they can always like do communication via email.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are some things that are really pressing at the moment. But basic connectivity is one of the major issues that I see.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
On my on my end, when the lockdown started, I gave a data to our administrators. Right now, we have about 850 faculty members.
Mm-hmm.
And before the lockdown, based on our data, about only 40% was 40% of that 850 are using our platform, no, faculty, from different levels. We have different levels from level 4 to level 1, no.
Mm.
And if that's 850, that's roughly about 350 something. So we have about almost 500 faculty members that we need to onboard outrightly in this pandemic thing. So just compute the number. When we do the online tutorials, average tutorial, which is not that long, average is 30 minutes. One-on-one tutorial for teachers. So multiply that to the hours per day, and so meaning the first challenge is the manpower, who's ready, who can do this, and so that teachers can easily convert their digital content. But converting their digital content is one thing, but teaching online with sound pedagogy is another thing. That's another training for teachers. We're not even talking about that. So we're just letting teachers convert their so they can do and communicate with their students. So that's the first challenge. How can we easily onboard this remaining teachers that are not yet really adept to online learning before this pandemic? At malaki siya. We did a research. We adopted an instrument called the Technology Readiness Index by Parasaruman. If you give that Technology Readiness Index, you will be able to categorize teachers to technology use of LMS. So let's just give 3 categories. The first one would be the early adopters. No? They have about 10. They are 10% of the population, 5 to 10%. The lowest level would be the resistant, no? whatever you do, they have nothing good to say. You still have those types of teachers in any institution, and the bulk of the population would be teachers who are insecure with technology and also have some certain discomforts, but they are open. So those, the middle category should be the, that's where we focused our training on for the past years, and that, population of teachers should be the focus of our strategies in the coming days, in the coming months, as we move forward for this. So how do we eliminate their discomfort, and how do we eliminate their insecurity with technology? Those are some of the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. On my end, I see three challenges. One is, firstly, not all kinds of learning can be done online. You definitely have. I was reading the chat. There's a teacher from a culinary school, and how do you discuss taste? You know, virtually. There are other things like involve touch. For sports, for example, how do you incorporate team sports and the like? No? While there are a lot of learnings that can benefit through virtual, there are those that are very limiting because of this. Another challenge is for those, especially in public schools and lower segments. What if the home does not have connectivity or is very limited? Then you are really going to be one of the most challenged communities in this time. The third is, I think one of the more the segment that would be the challenge the most would be those that whose learning styles are not used to virtual. Those who are more used to physical contact, and also who need more assisted learning. So those who are challenged with self-discipline, who need face-to-face interaction, are not very flexible, might be in for a more harder experience than others.
Well, to help you, thank you. To help you compare again with Hong Kong, for example, the big difference is right now the education board did not ask schools to stop online learning, online classes. I mean, so it is something that that I think is far different from the Philippines because either there was like a CHED memorandum or a DepEd memorandum saying that we should stop it. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So at present, the most difficult part is really so it's continuing. There's online classes, but the most difficult part is the grade school. At least I'm talking for the grade school. I'm not aware of the university level, but in the grade school, the primary schools here, their question is, should we do online classes? Because when you have online class, it's risky for a young person of 6 to 12 years old to be in a video conference. And also, the funny thing is, parents would usually join the video conference because they're, an 8-year-old doing video conference may not be the best setup. So teachers, in a way, are also afraid to have classes where the parents are, because they might be finally found out that they're not good teachers or that they have difficulties. Okay, so it's like having, actually, instead of 30 students, you have 30 classrooms, because each house is a classroom. So it could be many things. So the other lastly, maybe some of the teachers are afraid to start doing online classes because they're used to asynchronous. They just send students their assignments and everything. So that's really not a problem. They've been doing this, but to do this on a regular basis is kind of difficult for them. So if you can compare this with the Philippines, just think about this. It's possible to do this, but it's also going to be difficult for the grade school because there will be some form of inability for our young people to do it on their own.
Yeah. Seems like most, if not all, of the challenges that we've been seeing so far relate to whether it's readiness or some sort of skills or competency gap when it comes to teaching and learning, but also infrastructure is also a big challenge, whether a school is ready or our homes are ready to be connected, and if we have the certain platforms that we have. But I'd also like, I see it, Mark.
To add, like in Globe, we did a study, an IDC study. So in the Philippines, for the education sector, meron tayong 54% lang, 54.5% lang of laggard. So basically, most of our teachers, people in the academy are laggards talaga. So next done would be 31.8. So these are like the initiators. And then our champions would go as low as 4.5. So only a few would be like the ones. And then the others would be like the early adapters. But technically, they have the facilities, but they do not know exactly how to use it.
Yeah.
So this is something that could probably change in the next couple of months. And parang we see this as a problem, or we saw this as a problem before, and right now it's still a problem. And we hope to address those gaps by doing webinars like this in order for them to know how to onboard schools and eventually become part of the changes that will happen in the schools or in learning or in the total education.
I totally agree. I think though one thing that I'd like to add in terms of challenges, because we've been many of us also look at this from the lens of online learning. Like some of these challenges that we're facing right now are also challenges perhaps by many of us who are EdTech champions who've been trying to equip our fellow teachers or colleagues the past 2, 3, 5, 10 years. But I think one novel challenge that this situation also presents is we're in a time of emergency, and we're in a pandemic. And so I want to hear what your thoughts are, because I read a couple of opinion columns and editorials saying that we shouldn't only look at this as as a problem of online learning, but you should also be looking at this as a form of an emergency type of learning where students might not be in the right frame of mind. Teachers might be experiencing many, difficulties that are not necessarily related to online learning, but maybe related more to, the health situation. Maybe they have colleagues who are, who've caught the disease, or they have a lot more responsibilities at home. So I don't know what your thoughts are on these problems as well.
I think seriously that we need to make sure first that we have, as educators and as champions, quote unquote, we need to make sure that we provide security to our faculty members, to our teachers, to our institutions. This is going to be a change of paradigms, like a huge mental shift. There's a need also for us to make sure that eventually to accept that this is going to be the new normal. Because if catastrophes like this is like going to war. If catastrophes like this continue in the next couple of years or months for COVID-19, we really have to adapt. And as educators, as practitioners, making sure that our students are secured mentally, physically, of course, in their houses. Of course, they have to make sure that it's conducive still for learning. And then, of course, in terms of mentorship, our teachers should, of course, most of them would say, online learning, mahirap yan, paano yun, wala akong nag-prepare. At the same time, parang, paano ko siya gagawin? Hindi ko alam kung paano ako mag-implement. It has to be there has to be some sort of acceptance that this is going to be a norm in the next couple of months, hopefully.
Well, let me add to what Mark said. Let us let us just situate, let us just pause for a while and situate ourselves and realize that what is happening is the first of its kind in the history of mankind. I mean, we have to think that way and realize that this is really a historic event, and it changes everything. No, whether we're ready or not, it will change, and it will be the tama si Mark, no? It is the new normal. And so, like any technology implementation, it's always cultural implementation. So how do we implement culture change as far as teaching and learning is concerned? The fastest possible time and the most efficient way, probably going to this new normal. That would be the question that we need to probably address moving forward.
For me, let me see. Oh, maybe it's yeah. Okay. For me, the best advice I can make this time is just don't panic, because this is really like what Tujel said. For me, I'd like to compare this. I wasn't there, but it's like having a World War II. I mean, people,
You were there.
education really has been disrupted. That's why I wore the disrupted EdPH shirt that I like wearing too when I give talks, because this has really should and is changing the way we think about how we should be educating. So it is this time. So wars can end for 2 to 3 years, and it's possible that I'm not thinking about virus staying that long, but it is possible that it is important that we should learn from all of this experience by saying that, so now that can happen again. How can we prepare students for the future too, while I'm answering this temporary need? So there's a temporary need to do this, but this is not a temporary answer. It will be an answer that can be used to prepare ourselves for the future. So think about maybe there's just one more thing. Many people think about online, that online classes and online learning as the same. Actually, it's different. We can do online learning without online classes, because you can learn online by yourself, and you can. So whether or not, I think the question is, many of us believe that there can be online learning. I think the question we need to ask is, can we now have online classes? Because that is where our old way of checking things, attendance, exams, participation, recitation, all of that come from that old mold. And maybe there is a question, there's this question we should ask ourselves: are we going to assess people now that way? The reason why we are having difficulties with online classes is because we usually get face-to-face assessment methods. So now is a time for us to ask that question. What type of assessment should we be using in order for us to learn, to know whether our students are learning? Not because who will be valedictorian or who will be the best, but rather if they are learning.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah, for me, I completely agree with Sir Broden. In this time, let's not panic. Can we go through this experience with grace and collaboration? We'll be learning more and more as we go through this. That there are a lot of things we're doing that will no longer apply, and we cannot keep forcing it. And it's all about, because no one really has the right answer and the template. There might not even be a template. Can we all start collaborating, learning from what worked with this side, what worked with the other, and be very open to change your position if a stronger position comes in play.
I like how this conversation is going and how this presented. Like what Brother Dennis said, there are some temporary solutions that we might need to access urgently right now. But we also have to think about the long term, like the new normal that you mentioned. How are we going to collaborate better so that we can create meaningful change in our schools and how we do things. I mean, we might not go back to business as usual. So to segue to the next question, what do you think, if you have any predictions, what do you think would be what would the new normal look like for schools? What do you think after this pandemic, if this ends or when this ends, how do you see schools or learning and teaching changing because of this situation and our learnings from this challenge?
Okay.
I think we'll be. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Go first, Vince. Okay. You first.
Yeah. I think when we go back to the way things were, there will be a lot more onboarding with how to utilize mobile tech and internet connectivity. How do we independently learn and all of this? No, it's gonna be a turnkey approach, much like how we, after a few calamities, everyone now has a go bag next to the door. To that effect. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
For our educators, be prepared to be changed forever. That's one thing, because this pandemic will change the way we move, the way we move in our schools probably, or in our houses, the way we build our lessons, the way our students learn, the way we connect to others. When will this be over? Never. Hindi talaga siya matatapos. Parang Roden is correct. It's very much the same as the war. It's a catastrophe that will change the world, the entire world. But it will be a norm, or at least part of the norm. But be prepared for a lot of training, pedagogical training in general. There's a lot of questions. Like, say, for example, Miguel was pointing out the question earlier. What if it's a culinary class? How can I teach taste or textual? Diba? So, I mean, the videos would help, like the procedural method of teaching. Okay, let's try to cut the veggies this way or whatever. But the senses, if the cooking or the smell will appeal to the senses,
the taste.
Yeah, the sense of taste. It's one thing. Also, parang a lot of people are saying, oh, DepEd already has a learning commons where they can access references and materials. It's good to have a repository of materials, and I'm all for that. But again, technology, I would always say this, is just a support. It's secondary to pedagogy. It's the one thing that we need to utilize as an ally. So if you're 80% doing pedagogical training online, most probably it will change to 50-50. So probably that's my prediction now. 50% pedagogy, 50% technology. We have to use more technology now because again, the times have changed, and it's a cultural revolution out there. A lot of people will probably have this aversion of using technology, but then again, even the types of assessment that we will have to give our students will be dependent on technology. Because again, it's going to be online teaching, online education, online pedagogy.
Well, for me, before Tujel answers, for me, what will be new normal is, we remember books. All students might have books. The new normal will be, we will need a computer for each student and connectivity. That would be, although it looks very expensive, but many years ago, people could not afford books or cannot have their own books. So we will have to try, private groups, publishers, whatever companies, will have to make sure that books of old that can now become, for example, can now become is cheaper, or technology can be cheaper because it is now something that can connect us even if something like this happens. Of course, what is important is you still cannot do technology if you did not try it in school. I mean, it has to be, at least for me, 30% of the time online, or 1/3 of the time online, and 2/3 of the time face-to-face in our regular school. because that is something to prepare. So for me, it's very important. It's a new thing. I predict that we will think about connectivity and computers as necessary tools, even for scholars. We will have to look for money for scholars. We will have to look as much as what is for them. These are necessary tools to continue on with learning, especially in the coming months where it's possible that there will be no face-to-face class. I have always, I'm a believer of for example, I used to come from a school with culinary arts, so that is a problem for me. How do they do that? So I cannot answer that. What the new will be, they will tell us what is going to happen when we have this on the online. So it's difficult. I cannot share, I have no ideas. But the experts, maybe as time goes on, will have ways of doing this.
Nice. Thank you, Brother Dan. Sir Tujel.
On my end, I have three categories. First, from an administrator perspective, the new normal is for the past years, educational technology and technology integration with education is just a nice thing to have. This time, it should be the primary investment in all infrastructure and all the directions, and they should not, administrators should not just relegate it to the IT. Everybody should be involved. Everybody should know EdTech by now. So that's one. That's one from an administrator's perspective. Hindi na kailangan siyang nice thing to have dahil siya na ngayon yung normal. So everybody should know it, the ins and outs. Then from the faculty perspective naman, the new normal is one of the reasons why many students here in Manila protested because they were overwhelmed with the online requirements given by teachers is that most of these requirements and activities were not engaging because teachers were not prepared. So the new normal for teachers is to have that skill where they will be able to engage their learners. So yung mga talents ng mga bloggers ngayon, mga video, mga
TikTok
bloggers, video editors, even music and all that would be very, very handy for teachers. If you don't have that, medyo nasa disadvantage ka. No? So that's one of the new normal for teachers because you have to be able to learn how to communicate online. Something that's not given to many teachers now. So that's the new normal for teachers. Students, on the other hand, the new normal is for them to be self-regulated learners. I know they have been spoon-fed starting from elementary hanggang even college pa nga eh. So there are certain limitations that you can do in the higher ed because most of the things they values that they have formed have already been formed way back in the elementary days. So this is not the values that they should learn should start early. So the new normal is for them to be self-regulated learners.
Nice, thank you. Those are really compelling predictions from all of us. Just to make the future a bit more accessible, maybe we can end this part by just sharing what are the things that maybe our teachers or schools can do, actionable steps that they can take throughout this. We still have 2 weeks in the quarantine. It might extend for a bit longer, and like we said, if we get back, things might not be the normal things that we're used to be. So, do you have any tips for any of our attendees here? And while we're asking that question, I'd also like to request the attendees, if you'd like to ask questions, if you'd like to maximize the Q&A, to upvote some of the questions so that after this last question, we might still have time to answer your questions. Yeah. So
Okay.
Anyway, back to what are actionable things that our schools can do.
So maybe for short-term plans muna, Jason. So make sure that your teachers already have access to the internet. Because it's very difficult also for teachers to execute their classes who do not have stable connectivity. Just to give you a use case, one of our partner universities in Southern Mindanao already has contacted us and purchased several prepaid internet kits, the ones that are plug and play, so that they can distribute to the teachers and make sure that learning continues even at home. Um, it's not about Globe being the connectivity provider. No, you can also maximize, of course, other parang timelines that each particular institution has. So, say for example, for long term naman, um, the small, medium, or like the large universities would depend on their timelines, how they intend to proceed in terms of their parang technological frameworks, and of course their pedagogy as well as their school culture. But make sure that there's an onboarding, a major onboarding of teachers, which will be trained pedagogically, of course, and of course the use of the tools. Because no matter how good your tools are, no matter how expensive they are, if you do not know how to use them, hindi pa rin. Of course, the implementation is a different thing. Plus, the major percentage of this would be like the change of mindset. Right? So long term na siya. It's a long shot, right? As I've said, there's going to be an aversion in terms of using technology. But again, this particular mental shift is important, making sure that, acceptance is there as this will be the new normal. Sabi nga, maybe in the next 2 weeks, pag na-lift by quarantine, what's going to happen next? Of course, we could go out pa rin. But still, we have to make sure that our students and our teachers are secured. So for the school owners, try to think about it that way. Long-term wise, what would be the implications of integrating technology or learning technologies in our school ecosystem, and making sure that everyone has access to these types of technology. The culture eventually will change. Some would embrace, some would really have that kind of hate and love and hate relationship with technology. But this is part of the pedagogy now. As I've said, it's pandemic pedagogy. So what can we do? Then we have to act now. Temporary needs first, or immediate needs first, and then we go long term. There has to be a roadmap, at least for each particular institution, and how they see themselves moving forward. So there.
Yes. Thank you.
Jerson, may I share a slide very
Yes.
quickly? Okay. Could you see the slide? There.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. I guess just to leave our audience with something to review if the shoe fits for you. This hasn't been publicly launched yet, but it's already available for anyone who wants to look at it. It's called the Globe eLibrary. GlobeELibrary.ph is the current platform, and it will be available and Google Play Store in a few days. Basically what it is, it's a source of free ebooks and e-learning videos, and it's absolutely free. There's no charge. A lot of the ebooks, well, all the ebooks, both local and international, are all public domain books. So you have the classic novels and storybooks for kids, appropriate for K to 12. It's been curated with DepEd. DepEd also generously provided local titles produced by their teachers. So over the course of several years, DepEd has been conducting their storybook competitions, and this is now the new home, or one of the new homes of the storybooks. Globe and Ayala Foundation also at the time had a Text to Teach program. This is a lineup of more than 100 3 to 5 minute videos on core subjects like math, science, Filipino, and values. And it all has a new home in this platform as well. Anyone's free to go to that site now, but this is just a quick view of it. If you're familiar with the Netflix navigation, we made it very similar so that navigation will be very seamless and familiar. So from looking at your featured books to your featured videos, you can search it. And it will be quite easy to look for the books and content that you want. And procuring the books and reading it is as seamless as a click of a button. You could read online or you could download offline. and it's the same for the videos. And over time, and especially with what's happening now, we're looking at populating this content with more through more partnerships with local and international publications. So that's something you can readily, the public can readily access today.
Nice. Thank you for sharing, Miguel. Can the attendees colleagues also share this to their other colleagues as well? Miguel, pwede na siyang i-share ng colleagues to their colleagues.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Nice. So that's globelibrary.ph. Thank you. Sir Tujel, Brother Dennis, what are your tips?
Well, many of them has been shared already. Just maybe one author that's working, that seems to be a good one to look at now, is Mr. John Spencer. John Spencer is the Spencer is SPENCER. If you look at the site, he's talking about a term or an idea. Is talking about vintage innovation. It's actually a mix of a mashup. It's a mindset, a mashup of putting things together from the old things of doing things plus the new technologies that you can mix together, so that it's not all new. Some teachers are afraid to do things because they seem to be we have to do new all things, but all things new. Also, secondly, is don't think about online classes as on-screen classes all the time. I mean, where we don't want students to be just in the screen all the time. So you have to have a good balance of being off-screen. What should they be doing out of the screen? Because we do know that it's not good for them to be on the screen. So basically that's a short advice I have.
Okay, for me, fastest way for teachers to implement in the remaining weeks to be able to do online learning is, first they should understand what asynchronous online learning means. Brother Dennis was telling us about students not being on screen all the time. So asynchronous learning is something like that. You give activity, and this activity can range from 2 days, 3 days to 1 week. But the most important thing there is the teacher should teachers' online presence should be felt most of the time. We don't believe in that saying that the heart, absence make the heart grows fonder. It's not true in online learning. Online presence is very important. So, but it doesn't have to be real time. But the communication process should always be open and interactive with both teachers, students, and content as well. Yung interaction sa tatlong side. It's also a good way for teachers to update their content. Kung yung mga content nila yung galing pa sa notebook nila nung sila ay nag-aaral pa, it's the best time to find a digital content about their topic, and I'm sure there is. Isang fastest way to do that is before you start Google, let's say my topic is about psychology, you add the word interactive psychology, you Google that, you'll be given millions of sites about. Of course, you have to filter the results, but there are many available resources online, but we can use this time to validate them and filter them.
Nice. Thank you for all the tips. I'd like to read out also a few tips that have been shared in the chat, because I think only the panelists can read. I think to refer to some of the questions here about culinary school or maybe practical subjects or even laboratory subjects, TESDA actually has made online courses, I think since 5 years ago even. I've seen this e-TESDA. So maybe you can just Google e-TESDA. You can borrow some of their best practices. They have their NC1, NC2 course material already available there for free. So maybe if some of your disciplines are similar to how they do it in Tech to Walk education, then maybe we can learn from them. There is also an ongoing question here about assessment? How will assessment be different? I shared my answer there, but I don't know if any of our panelists also have time to just quickly share what your thoughts are about assessment during this time.
Well, actually, it depends on what type of assessment you're gonna do it. So again, we have to maximize the use of technology. So, for example, if you're, because I'm a communications teacher, I normally ask my students to create their own vlogs in terms of the writing classes. So I ask them to come up with a portfolio before, and then the contents of the portfolio should be posted in a vlog. For the public speaking classes naman, I use YouTube a lot, and I ask them to upload their speeches, to record themselves and do their speeches online. So in that case, I will be able to see pa rin the nonverbals of the students. So it really depends on what skill you'd like to assess and what type of rubric you'd like to propose. But it has to be standardized across each department, across each course, so that as teachers will not be confused on how much rate are we gonna give our students. Again, if you already have an online platform, that's gonna be easier because you can give them pegs and samples. But then again, of course, if you're a starting teacher, say for example, this is your day one of coming up with an online classroom, then you really have to curate the resources properly and make sure that you choose the right resources. So assessments can be modified as well. There's a lot of assessments that are available online. So you can utilize the power of Google, sabi nga ni Sir Tugel, by typing keywords. So say for example, interactive assessments. There's a lot of choices, but you just have to make sure that you choose wisely as educators. So there.
Ako naman, let me add, the main purpose of using technology in teaching and learning is for us to help our students be ready in real world situations when they work. So if you are a teacher, you have to design your activities and assessments in such a way that mimics real world scenarios. And when they work, bosses and clients will not ask for their test scores, and they'll be asking if they can deliver certain things or not. So if those things are not in place on how you assess your students and how you do your activities, this is a good time for us to redesign those things. So assessments, authentic assessment that mimics real world scenario would still be the best for online learning, because one good thing with online learning is resources are available online. It's a good tool for people to collaborate and validate things, something that's very needed in a real world work situation. So if we can integrate that with how we teach and how we assess our students, then we're on the right track.
For me, I have one. Thank you, Tugel. I have one caveat and one good thing to share. The caveat is this: we all are using free tools, but we have to be really sure that it protects privacy or data privacy, because that might be another concern in the future. If we are just saying, hey, let's use this, and students actually data is being used somehow, right? And they don't know that you're actually bringing them into sites that are not that uses their data and can soon be used by someone else. Okay. The good thing that I see is this: even for college, for tertiary education, I noticed that some schools, big schools, well-known schools all over the world can actually deliver online degrees. Okay, that was the time without COVID, okay? So, but then since that is possible, maybe we can look at research on how this is possible. How can real good degrees be actually given by these schools? And then put in our own ideas so that it will become what we want to be, at least for the Philippines. So there is that, it is proven that you can give legit degrees. So let's look at that. It's possible probably to do this also for other things, that or other degrees, or even grade school or high school that we would like to work on in the next few years.
Nice. Thank you, Sir Dennis. Let's move to one last question. There are a few questions here about internet connectivity, whether because their speeds have slowed down because many people are connecting to the internet, or they just don't have access to it. I don't know if you can share any easy practices for now, because it is somewhat like a gravity problem. If they can't connect to the internet, then they can't connect to any information. But I don't know if their internet is slow. Have you seen any good practices that were able to maximize this?
I have read one. It was actually done 20 years ago in Kupam, India, where the barangay, I don't know if they call it barangay there, but the barangays became the hub for the fishing community for internet connectivity, or where the learners, not even learners, but the fishermen will get access for experts. But the connectivity was provided by the government at that time in the small. It's like a barangay. So it can be that since our barangay is providing health care centers, daycare centers, connectivity, library, and learning things should be on their list right now, no? And also we can also probably map out not only the barangays but all internet cafes near the place, that they will have this some sort of promo or preview or priority for students who would like to engage in online learning and stuff. I mean, there are various things that we can do right now, of course, after COVID. But these are the things that should be in place in the grassroots level, I think. If connectivity is an issue, for of course, the ideal is provide them with connectivity and gadgets. But of course, that's very expensive at this point. Doing those grassroots level small things can be a start, I think.
On my side, I just like to use the word connectivity. It's not going to be about connection data or whatever. It's just that I think one thing that we can work on is connectivity of teachers to each other. At this time, there is a need for us to collaborate more, share tips, share ideas. Actually, it's even in this chat, someone said, UP Open University share, they have degrees. So if it's possible to do this, so why can we not do this for other schools too? Of course, there are CHED rules and stuff, and so we really have to work on that. Push for this mix or blended learning. But in the end, I think we have been. I know teachers in grade school and high schools. They just talk to each other in their school. There's no such thing as, hey, what are you doing in your other school that's good? What are you doing in your other? It's like a secret. No, we are doing so good here, but we're not sharing this with you. It's time for us with this to keep on sharing, putting things that we're doing, the best practices, not necessarily your syllabus, but rather the actions that you take, because this is going to be for the benefit of young people.
Nice. Yeah, I really like how Brother Dennis mentioned the fact that connectivity, especially at this time where many teachers might be isolated in their own homes, the idea of social connectivity is something that's also very important for our well-being, but also to develop professionally. Maybe some of our answers to these questions have already been answered by our colleagues. And so the fact that many of you are joining us here today, it's already a good step towards becoming more connected as educators, so that we can share best practices, and then you can learn from us, and we can also learn from you. Thank you. It's already 11:15. Mark, should we still extend or should we wrap up? I know
I think
the webinar is
this is
already
a wrap
scheduled
up.
for 11. All right. Okay, so let's wrap up. So maybe let's just do one word checkup from everyone. Thank you again to the 200 participants that learned with us this morning, that joined us in this webinar. We hope that your respective schools and your respective teachers and faculty and students are safe. And so we'd like to close this webinar with just one word. What would you hope our attendees take with them or think about after this webinar?
I'll begin. Okay, I'll begin. I think administrators should allow the teachers to experiment. This is the word, therefore, is experiment, because there is no mistake right now. Of course, don't make a very big mistake, but experiment.
Experiment from Brother Dennis. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's to share. So like Brother Dennis said, that let's not hold propriety over good things that are working. Let's share. It doesn't have to be something signature to our schools. Let's do our part to make sure the good things are known by all.
Nice. Thank you.
Siguro for me, this is where we start creating the future of learning. It's really where we want to tap our alliances, our partners, the time for us as educators to rethink about the kind of pedagogy that we have and make sure that this will be applicable to the kind of learners that we have. Because this is the time where everything is changing in front of our very eyes, like pedagogy is changing, and even the landscape of education is changing. So we really have to be prepared.
Thank you, Mark.
Continuing learning, online learning today doesn't mean we're insensitive to the plight of everyone. We feel, especially the frontliners, we feel their pain, and everybody's adjusting. But for all we know, learning might be one of the things that will get us out from all this situation. No? So it is symbolic that we continue learning, I think, no, amidst this most difficult time. So we just have to make things right, but we should not stop from learning in this most difficult time, because it's one thing that probably lead us to healing, I think.
Well said. Thank you, everyone. We'd like to again thank Miguel, Brother Dennis, Sir Tujel, and Mark for joining us in this webinar. We'd also like to thank the 200 attendees or participants that were here, and also the Globe team behind the scenes. I think I'd like to read their names. Kat, Kitten, Sarah, Ken, and Gail, thank you for supporting, making sure this webinar is a success. Yeah. So practice safe hygiene, stay at home. Support our health workers.
Sandali lang, nag-request lang yung aking team, yung EdTech team ng Binil.
Shoutouts, yeah.
Iin ko daw sila, no? So without them, I will not be able to do all these things. EdTech team Binil, you really rock.
Yeah.
Gerson, this is going to be a series of webinars. So expect more webinars from Globe.
Can I also say something, one last?
Yes, Brother Dennis.
Yeah, we think of frontliners as the medical, that's true, or they're the last line of defense. The teachers now, in many ways, are frontliners because classes have to, study, learning has to continue. So I salute you also because you are now thinking about how to continue with this. That's like being first frontliner.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Dennis. Mark, you'd like to share information about how this is a series?
There's going to be a series of webinars, so we'll be announcing more details in the next couple of days. But for the questions that weren't answered in the chat box and the Q&A. Please expect emails from us. We'll try to address your questions as quickly as possible. So,
All right. Maraming salamat po. Thank you everyone and have a good morning.
thank you.
Thank you.